Big Boss grapples with his grief throughout Metal Gear Solid. His personal betrayals by those closest to him fuel his dark vision for a future where he's the biggest and deadliest nuclear world power. Snavid, BB's clone son and foil, takes a different approach to life. Although BB has been telling Snavid from the beginning that he's doomed to die like a dog on the battlefield, Snavid makes the most of his life and uses the time he has to make the world a better, safer place. Solid Snake will be the first to tell you he's no hero.
I'm no hero. Never was. Never will be.
He doesn't hold himself in high regard, and he doesn't like when others hold him in high regard either. You might think Snavid's a pessimist, but what if I was to tell you he was the beacon of hope that shines through Metal Gear Solid? No matter how difficult things get, or how dire the situation is, Snavid puts his head down and pushes through. Heads up, this article will have spoilers for Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, and Metal Gear Solid 4. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Luffy and welcome to my channel. I talk video games and character analysis, so if that's your thing, subscribe and stick around. If you like what I do here, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a channel member so that I can continue to bring these videos to you weekly. Today, we're covering how Snavid is a beacon of hope throughout Metal Gear Solid, so let's hop right into things. From Jaded Mercenary to determined Philanthropist. Deep within the fortress of Zanzibar land, Snavid confronts and fights BB for the final time in Metal Gear 2. BB's lost his mind by this point. He only sees value in someone's skills as a soldier. He can only understand pleasure when it comes from fighting on the battlefield. He projects onto Snavid when he says, "You care nothing for power, or money, or even sex. The only thing that satisfies your cravings is war. All I've done is give you a place for it. I've given you a reason to live." Snavid counters with, "It doesn't have to be that way. I'm not like you. I love life." Despite being betrayed by his commander, BB, he knows the right thing to do is to stop BB and he isn't snowed by his speech. When the battle is done and BB has burned to a crisp, Snavid doesn't continue his career as a mercenary. He retires to Alaska and rejects BB's notion that he can only be fulfilled when on the battlefield. He even picks up a hobby, dog sledding. Yeah, he was also drinking heavily and not very happy, but he tried to reject the fate BB spelled out for him all the same. Eventually, Snavid is forced back into the life of being a mercenary by Colonel Campbell. During his mission on Shadow Moses in Metal Gear Solid 1, Liquid tells Snavid,
"We have no past, no future, and even if we did, it wouldn't be truly ours. You and I are just copies of our father, Big Boss."
Snavid was designed to replace BB as a super soldier working for the Patriots. Everything he thought was an individual quirk of his up until this point was a lie. Does Snavid spiral and accept the fate everyone has been spelling out for him during MGS1? Vulcan Raven tells Snavid,
"The path you walk on has no end. Each step you take is paved with the corpses of your enemies. Their souls will haunt you forever. You shall have no peace."
And Liquid later accuses Snavid of enjoying all the killing. Snavid doesn't accept these things for himself, however. His mission in MGS1 is to stop Liquid and the rest of the rogue Foxhound from setting up Shadow Moses Island as their base of operations and using Metal Gear Rex to launch a nuke. Along the way, Snavid is betrayed by Colonel Campbell and Naomi and turned into a walking bioweapon, infecting those he comes in contact with Fox Dye. His long-lost best friend even shows up to give him trouble, but Snavid doesn't buckle. He focuses on completing his mission to save Meryl and the world at large from Metal Gear Rex. After MGS1, Snavid has earned his retirement. He could have returned to his hobby of dog sledding, but instead he forms Philanthropy with Otacon. Snavid rejects Liquid's assessment that they have no future. Snavid does have a future, and it's a future of making the world a safer place. Ocelot sells Metal Gear Rex's test data on the black market after the Shadow Moses incident, making it so anyone with the capital to invest could create their own Metal Gear. The odds of catching and stopping every organization to build a Metal Gear is daunting, and someone with less hope might have been disheartened and deterred from even trying. Couldn't be Snavid and Otacon. Philanthropy sets out to expose and destroy Metal Gears, even going so far as to expose the US Marines for using Rex's test data to create Metal Gear Ray. You can't unsell the test data and keep such a dangerous weapon out of people's hands, but you can control what you do in response, and Snavid and Otacon take on the challenge of stopping every Metal Gear that pops up. They shine as a light of hope when the rise of Metal Gears make things look bleak. Towards the end of MGS2, Liquid Ocelot hops into Ray to use it to make his grand escape. Snavid is fearless and chases after Ray, despite not being able to do a lick of damage against it, and how easily he could get sucked down into the water in its wake and drown. Because of his courage, Snavid's able to put a tracking device on Ray and track where Liquid Ocelot is running off to. Snavid wasn't able to stop the S3 plan, but through his and Otacon's, and Raiden's, Olga's, and Emma's efforts, they're able to destroy the Patriots AI's GW and stop a Metal Gear from hanging out in the Hudson River. What's more, Snavid and Otacon see that there's an even greater threat to the world, and that's the Patriots AIs. They pivot Philanthropy from focusing on exposing and destroying Metal Gears to tracking down and destroying the Patriots AIs. Snavid could have easily chosen to live his life for himself. He could have retired once again in Alaska after his time on Shadow Moses Island. He's driven to make the world a better place though, and soften the blow of Metal Gears being made available worldwide, and then to stop the Patriots AIs from having a total information control. It's hard to imagine that the work of two people could really have any impact, but Snavid and Otacon have hope that they can make a difference. The last-ditch efforts of a dying man.
We're not men. We're shadows in the shape of men.
When we meet back up with Snavid again in MGS4, we see he's been rapidly aging. He now has the body of a 70-year-old man. He finds out through Naomi that he only has 6 months to live, and at that point the old fox dye circulating in his veins will have broken down enough to target people indiscriminately, making Snavid a walking pandemic. Fox dye dies with him though, so if he were to take his own life in 3 months, it should save the world from fox dye. Throughout all of this, Liquid Ocelot is trying to find a way to hijack the Patriots AI's SOP system so he can turn all the world's soldiers into his private army. Any of these things would be enough to bring someone to their knees. Snavid doesn't give up though. He uses his remaining time to take on Liquid Ocelot and the Patriots AIs. He's driven to do everything he can to make the world a better, safer place. He even uses his death sentence to his advantage. When faced with a microwave hallway that's designed to take out any intruders on their way to the Patriots AIs, Snavid volunteers to be the one to make that long trek.
A giant microwave oven. You'd have to have a death wish to go in there. Sounds like the perfect job for me.
He doesn't want anyone else to risk their lives, not when his is going to be cut short so soon. Snavid survives the microwave hallway and is able to stop Liquid Ocelot and the Patriots AIs. When he's ready to take his own life to save the world one final time, BB shows up to stop him. BB, by this point, is no longer the warmonger we met in Metal Gear 2. He's had a change of heart and urges Snavid to put down his gun and tells him,
Don't waste the life you have left fighting.
It's fitting that the man who told Snavid his only reason to live was to fight another day ends their story by telling him to find a new reason to live. The newfound sense of hope for a world that doesn't need one-man armies BB has is something that Snavid has been working towards all along. BB wants Snavid to live as a part of the world he created, which is what he's earned. Your thoughts? Undeniably, Snavid has done a lot of heroic things throughout Metal Gear Solid. He helped save the world 5 times by the end of his story, but what's the most heroic thing he's ever done? I was curious to know what y'all thought was Snavid's most heroic act, so we took a poll here on YouTube. The majority of you voted that Snavid's most heroic act was destroying the Patriots AIs, which makes total sense. It's a little hard to top toppling the Illuminati. Zazam Pow 9657 commented, listening to his enemies' last words and showing them respect after they tried to kill him. He even gets a lot of them to open up and help him. I really love that Snavid does that too. He really respects his enemies, even if they are on the opposite side of the battlefield. When Meryl calls Psycho Mantis a monster, Snavid cuts her off.
You monster.
Let him talk. He doesn't have much time left.
He's considerate of Psycho Mantis' waning time left and wants to make sure he has the space to say everything he wants to. I really love that about Snavid. Skywalker 00777 commented, I vote for raising Sunny. If it's another hero, they probably use saving the world as an excuse to throw her in an orphanage. Saving the world is breakfast for Snavid, but become a stepdad to Sunny on top of that, making him a legend that surpasses BB, who doesn't even want to acknowledge his kid and focus on his army. Skywalker makes such a good point. There are so many kid characters in media that just stick around for the hero to save them and then disappear from the narrative. Literally, that's what Raiden does with Sunny, and his own son. He saves her, then dumps her off on Snavit and Otacon. Snavit and Otacon step up to raise her the best they can though, and clearly are constantly thinking about what's best for her, as Otacon talks about Sunny going outside more at the end of MGS4, and I'm so proud of them for that. It's tough raising a kid, especially when you're nomadic and trying to save the world on top of it all. A lot of the MGS cast turns evil when faced with adversity. When the boss dies, Zero and BB go off the deep end, and Paramedic and Sigint soon follow after. When Snavit is betrayed by Colonel Campbell and Naomi, he doesn't follow suit. If anything, his mission in MGS1 pushed him to think about the well-being of the world at large, instead of focusing on what he wants as an individual. Saving the world from Metal Gears versus dog sledding in Alaska. Regardless of the personal hardships Snavit faces, he persists to undo the damage done by those that attempt to warp the world towards their selfish desires. He fights with Metal Gear derivatives created based on Rex's test data, and then dismantles the Patriots' AIs. Snavit and Otacon are the beacon of hope Metal Gear Solid needs. Thank you so much for making it to the end of today's video. If you liked it, share it with someone who wants to know more about Metal Gear Solid lore. If you need more MGS content, check out my Patreon. I upload articles I write on upcoming videos or just thought pieces on MGS in general. You can also support me in the channel by becoming a channel member. Or join us in Discord, we're always talking about MGS. More importantly than that though, please take care of yourself and I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.